Good morning, Way Academy. Welcome back to our Drop Everything and Read. This is our first week back from spring break. Today is April 6th, and we are at the beginning of chapter 12 in The Hate You Give. That's page 140 for those of you following along here online, as you'll see page 140. And if you're in the book, you're at approximately 211. So for those of you who have a copy of the book at home, you're on page 211. Just a quick recap for you. As we know, last time, Maverick and Mr. Lewis were having a pretty important conversation. Mr. Lewis had been approached for an interview from the news media, trying to get information on the situation in Garden Heights. And Mr. Lewis basically told the truth and used the power of his voice. Unfortunately, Maverick warns Mr. Lewis that he's a dead man walking, but this also has us thinking back to how segregation has been such an absurd factor in gangs and gang violence, and just again pushing that message, why can't we all just get along? This has been going on long enough. It's time for us to get on the same page. Mr. Lewis also calls out the way that King uses silence and fear to control the neighborhood. So rather than cower in the corner, it's important to find the courage to speak up. Again, this was a bit of an example of code switching. That's one of our underlying themes throughout the novel. Obviously, in front of the officers, he shows how deeply aware he is of police brutality. So going from that colloquial, friendly language to speaking properly and informatively to the police. So again, a prime example of code switching. Afterwards, they go back to the store, Maverick goes back to the store. Mr. Lewis goes back to his store. They are approached later by some police officers, and Maverick ends up being a little bit shaken as he is suspected and treated what is perceived as disrespectfully right out of the gate. And ultimately, they resolve their differences. What else can I tell you? Kenya and Star. Star has posted her Tumblr page, The Khalil I Know. Star has posted that. I hope I said Star. And she's trying to get Kenya to give her some feedback on it, as their friendship's been a little strained lately. Remember the protest where all the students were walking out and Star chose not to. Kenya thought that was a bit out of sorts, if you will. So they're stressed. And then, as we know, Lisa was talking to the Attorney General about Star going down to give her statement. So this last part right here, when Mama hangs up, I say, it wouldn't kill me to miss one day of school. I don't want to be there if they try to protest mess again. I wouldn't be surprised if Remy tried to get a whole week off because of Khalil. I need 2 days, that's all. Mama raises her brows. Okay, 1.5, please. She takes a deep breath and lets it out slowly. We'll see, but not a word of this to your brothers, you hear me? Basically, she said yes without saying yes outright. I can deal with that. And then we get to the next step. Pastor Eldridge Pastor Eldridge once preached that faith isn't just believing, but taking steps toward that belief. So similar to how teachers at school remind us, we try and remind you about goals. We want to make sure that we have a system in place to reach that goal. So it says faith isn't just believing, but taking steps toward that belief. So finding out what's important to you and how you're going to get it. So when my alarm goes off Tuesday morning, by faith, I don't get up, believing that Mama won't make me go to school. And to quote Pastor Eldridge, hallelujah, God shows up and shows out. Mama doesn't make me get up. I stay in bed listening as everybody else gets ready for the day. Sakani makes it his business to tell Mama, I'm not up yet. Don't worry about her, she says. Worry about yourself. The TV in the den blares some morning news show, and Mama hums around the house. When Khalil and 115 are mentioned, the volume lowers a whole lot and doesn't go back up until a political story comes on. So her parents are trying to shelter Star from the bad news on the media. My phone buzzes under my pillow. I take it out and look. Kenya finally texted me back about my new Tumblr. She would make me wait for hours for a response, and her comment, still short. It's all right. We'll just get back to the zoomed in here. Unfortunately, it's not letting me toggle the way it was before. So I just want to make sure we're on the right page. I roll my eyes. That's about as close as I'm going to get to a compliment from her. I text back, I love you too. Her response, I know. She's so petty. Part of me wonders, though, if she didn't respond last night because of drama at her house. Daddy said King's still beating Aisha up. Sometimes he hits Kenya and Lyric too. Kenya's not the type to talk about it like that. So I ask, everything okay? The usual, she writes back. Short, but it says enough. There isn't much I can do, so I just remember her. I'm here if you need me, or I just remind her, I'm here if you need me. Her response, you better be. See, petty. And then again, just thinking back to your own friendships, how sometimes it can be hard to be there for someone who may have helped us feel neglected or not worshipped or appreciated enough. And all of a sudden, the sarcasm, but the playful sarcasm brings you closer together. Here's the messed up part about missing school. You wonder what you'd be doing if you went. At 8, I figured Chris and I would just be getting to history since it's our first class on Tuesdays. I sent him a quick text. Won't be at school today. 2 minutes later, he replies. Are you sick? Need me to kiss it and make it better? Wink, wink. He seriously typed wink, wink instead of 2 wink emojis. I'll admit, I smile. I write back. What if I'm contagious? He says, does it matter? I'll kiss you anywhere. Wink, wink. I reply, is that another line? Oh, gosh, this page. Is that another line? He responds in less than a minute. It's whatever you want it to be. Love you, Fresh Princess. All right, guys, I'm having a problem with the navigation here. I'm just going to try and see if we can get back to normal. Okay, it's whatever you want it to be. Love you, Fresh Princess. Pause. That I word completely catches me off guard, like a player from the other team stealing the ball right as you're about to make a layup. It takes all of your momentum, and you spend a week wondering how that steal slipped up on you. Yeah, Chris saying love you is like that, except I can't waste a week wondering about it. By not answering, I'm answering, if that makes sense. The shot clock is winding down, and I need to say something. But what? By not saying I before love you, he's making it more casual. Seriously, love you and I love you are different. Same team, different players. Love you isn't as forward or aggressive as I love you. Love you can slip up on you, sure, but it doesn't make an in-your-face slam dunk. More like a nice jump shot. Good basketball analogy. Or if you're thinking in our literary terms, metaphor. So using something we're familiar with, basketball, with something we're trying to, an inanimate object. You can't feel love, right? But we know what basketball looks like. So comparing the inanimate love to something that we do know or can touch, these basketball shots. That's our metaphor. 2 minutes pass. I need to say something. Love you too. It's as foreign as a Spanish word I haven't learned yet, but funny enough, it comes pretty easily. I get a wink emoji in return. So Chris and Star have reached a different level in their relationship as well. Again, as people evolve and grow, relationships change and evolve as well. Just Us for Justice occupies the old Taco Bell on Magnolia Avenue. Ooh, Taco Bell, one of my favorites. Between the car wash and the cash advance place. Daddy used to take me and Seven to that Taco Bell every Friday and get us 99-cent tacos, cinnamon twists, and a soda to share. This was right after he got out of prison, when he didn't have a lot of money. He usually watched us eat. Sometimes he asked the manager, one of Mama's girlfriends, to keep an eye on us, and he went to the cash advance place next door. When I got older and discovered that presents don't just show up, I realized Daddy always went over there around our birthdays and Christmas. So even though Maverick had a pretty, questionable past, he always tried to make his children that priority, whether it was 99-cent tacos or a surprise birthday gift. Mama rings the doorbell at Just Us, and Miss Ofra lets us in. Sorry about that, she says, locking the door. It's just me here today. Oh, Mama says. Where are your colleagues? Some of them are at Garden Heights High doing a roundtable discussion. Others are leading a march at Carnation, where Khalil was murdered. It's weird to hear somebody say Khalil was murdered as easily as Miss Ofra does. She doesn't bite her tongue or hesitate. Short-walled cubicles take up most of the restaurant. They have almost as many posters as Seven has, but the kind Daddy would love, like Malcolm X standing next to a window holding a rifle, Huey Newton in prison with his fist up for Black Power, and photographs of Black Panthers at rallies and giving breakfast to kids. Miss Ofra leads us to her cubicle next to the drive-through window. It's kind of funny, too, because she has a Taco Bell cup on her desk. "Thank you so much for coming," she says. "I was so happy when you called, Mrs. Carter. Please call me Lisa. How long have you all been in this space?" "Almost 2 years now. And if you're wondering, yes, we do get the occasional prankster who pulls up to the window and tells me they want a chalupa." We laugh. The doorbell rings up front. "That's probably my husband," Mama says. "He was on his way." Miss Ofra leaves, and soon Daddy's voice echoes through the office as he follows her back. He grabs a third chair from another cubicle and sets it halfway in Miss Ofra's office and halfway in the hall. That's how small her cubicle is. "Sorry I'm late. Had to get Devontae situated with Mr. Lewis." "Mr. Lewis?" I ask. "Yeah, since I'm here, I asked him to let Devontae help around the shop. Mr. Lewis needs somebody to look out for his dumb behind, snitching on live TV like that." "You're talking about the gentleman who did the interview about the King Lords?" Miss Ofra asks. "Yeah, him," says Daddy. "He owns the barber shop next to my store." "Oh, wow. That interview definitely has people talking." Last I checked, it had almost 1 million views online. I knew it. Mr. Lewis has become a meme. It takes a lot of guts to be as upfront as he is. I meant what I said at Khalil's funeral, Star. It was very brave of you to talk to the police. I don't feel brave. With Malcolm X watching me on her wall, I can't lie. I'm not running my mouth on TV like Mr. Lewis. And that's okay, Miss Ofra says. It seemed Mr. Lewis impulsively spoke out in anger and frustration. In a case like Khalil's, I would much rather that you spoke out in a more deliberate and planned way. She looks at Mama. "You said the DA called yesterday?" Again, the district attorney. "Yes, they'd like to meet with Star tomorrow." That makes sense. The case was turned over to their office, and they're preparing to take it to grand jury. So that means they're prepared to go to the next level in order to try and seek justice. "What does that mean?" I ask. "A jury will decide if charges should be brought against Officer Cruz, otherwise known as 115 to Star. Star will have to justify to the grand jury," Daddy says. Miss Ofra nods. "It's a bit different from a normal trial. There won't be a judge or a defense attorney present. And the DA, again, the district attorney, so the main attorney for that region, will ask Star questions. But what if I can't answer them all?" "What do you mean?" Miss Ofra says. The gun in the car and stuff. On the news, they said there may have been a gun in the car. Like, that changes everything. I honestly don't know if there was." Miss Ofra opens a folder that's on her desk, takes a piece of paper out, and pushes it towards me. It's a photograph of Khalil's black hairbrush, the one he used in the car. "That's the so-called gun," Miss Ofra explains. "Officer Cruz claims he saw it in the car door, and he assumed Khalil was reaching for it. The handle was thick enough, black enough, for him to assume it was a gun. And Khalil was black enough," Daddy adds. A hairbrush. Khalil died over a hairbrush. And we'll pause there as we're getting closer to our time. For those of you just wanting to reflect, just take a minute to think back to why were the police actually harassing Maverick, as our last review we were talking about, and Kenya calls Star a coward. What are your reactions to the Kenya Star debacle? And finally, when we hear at the beginning of chapter 12, the military tanks coming in, should police have military-style heavy weapons, like the tank Star sees rolling down her streets? Why or why not? And again, we're just getting into Star talking with Miss Ofra. We'll pause. I'll set up the recording to continue, and we'll be back with you momentarily. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.